Welcome to this explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today because, well, we are looking at a really fascinating intersection of forces right now. We're going to unpack exactly how geopolitics, grassroots social movements, and global market stability all collide in real time. Today, we're dissecting a brilliant piece of analysis that looks at a very specific, impending date on the South African calendar and asks what it means, not just for the country itself, but for global investors everywhere.
So I want to pose this exact question directly to you right out of the gate. Will Ireland's recent immigration protests become South Africa's June 30 moment? It's a massive question, right? And it instantly frames the central narrative we're going to unpack today. Because you have to wonder, what actually connects the streets of Belfast and Dublin to the economic hubs of South Africa? Let's find out.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the June 30 deadline. Then, the Irish reference point. Third, South Africa's economic reality. Fourth, what markets are watching. And finally, the global strategic shift.
All right, starting with Section 1, the June 30 deadline, a looming date for South Africa.
So, what exactly is this deadline? Well, June 30th is a specific date issued by anti-illegal immigration activists in South Africa. They're publicly calling for this day to become a definitive turning point in the country's approach to border management. And what the source material points out is that this isn't just some fringe topic anymore. It's sparking intense debate across social media, it's dominating political discussions, and it's literally the primary focus across local community forums right now. You can really feel a palpable buildup of tension as this date approaches.
Moving to Section 2, the Irish reference point. Let's understand this comparison. Now, what's really interesting here is this remarkable domino effect we saw in Europe. Look at how this played out. On day 1 in Belfast, a localized incident occurs, a knife attack allegedly involving a refugee. Then, just several days later, this single spark ignites anti-immigration protests and violent unrest. Fast forward to the subsequent weeks, and this localized anger has expanded into broader national disruption. We're talking transport routes completely blocked, property damaged, and heavy police deployment. And presently, all of this has generated massive political pressure, practically forcing the introduction of new asylum regulations under Ireland's updated immigration framework. I mean, it went from a single spark to sweeping national policy changes in the absolute blink of an eye.
So, the true lesson drawn from all of this, it's speed. It is honestly astonishing how fast a simmering political debate can morph into severe economic and social disruption. For those analyzing the South African situation right now, the takeaway isn't just the protests themselves. The critical question observers are asking is whether South African public frustration is going to reach this identical, rapid intensity by June 30.
Which brings us to Section 3, South Africa's economic reality. It's a very different landscape. Because here's the thing. You can't just copy and paste the social dynamics of Dublin or Belfast straight onto Pretoria or Johannesburg. The two nations operate within vastly different historical, social, and economic contexts. Expecting a one-to-one parallel is kind of like trying to read a map of a city you aren't actually in. The underlying pressures in South Africa are uniquely complex and deeply rooted in its own distinct economic environment.
To put that into perspective, South Africa is currently struggling with high unemployment rates, immense pressure on its public services, sluggish economic growth, and widespread concerns surrounding crime. The analysis makes a point to highlight that these severe, everyday struggles have become heavily intertwined, fairly or unfairly, with the national conversation around undocumented migration. Essentially, economic frustration is acting as a massive accelerant for political dissatisfaction.
And that creates a really fascinating dual reality for the leadership. We see President Cyril Ramaphosa navigating an incredibly delicate political tightrope here. On one hand, he's publicly condemning xenophobic violence. But on the other hand, he's simultaneously promising stronger immigration enforcement and reforms. It's a masterclass in the kind of complex balancing act that institutional leaders literally have to perform when responding to rapidly rising community tensions.
All right, let's pivot to Section 4, what markets are watching. Specifically, the economic cost of disruption. Now, for global investors and business leaders, the underlying political issue of immigration actually takes a back seat. What they really, truly care about is market stability. Financial markets, as we know, absolutely hate uncertainty. They need an absence of commerce disruptions, an absence of supply chain interruptions, and an absence of violence. Investors simply aren't pricing in the political rhetoric, they're pricing in the risk of systemic disruption.
So the crucial point is that if large-scale unrest hits, markets immediately start evaluating the tangible risks. They're asking, are daily retail operations shutting down? Is international visitor confidence taking a hit, damaging tourism? Are foreign capital allocators losing confidence and pulling their investments entirely? Are security costs suddenly becoming a massive financial burden for local businesses who are just trying to keep their doors open? And perhaps most importantly, how effective is the government's response during the crisis? These tangible factors dictate investment decisions way more than the political debate sparking them.
Which brings us to a really powerful quote from the analysis. Immigration is increasingly becoming an economic issue rather than simply a border issue. This hits the nail on the head. This is the global paradigm shift we're uncovering today. It's no longer just about lines on a map. It's fundamentally about economic resilience and market confidence.
Let's zoom out for Section 5, the global strategic shift, looking beyond borders. What the source analysis reveals is that both Ireland's recent unrest and South Africa's impending June 30 discussions actually reflect the exact same common challenge faced by governments worldwide. Modern economies are facing this massive global balancing act. They're desperately trying to simultaneously foster economic growth, fulfill evolving labor market needs, enforce strict border management, and somehow maintain social stability all at once. It's like a complex gelling routine where dropping even a single ball threatens the whole shebang.
So, what does the best-case scenario actually look like for markets in South Africa? Well, if June 30 passes peacefully, it proves to global investors that South African institutions remain highly capable. It shows that they can successfully manage incredibly difficult, heated national debates through lawful and democratic processes. And that peaceful passage is immensely valuable to foreign capital because it sends a strong signal of true institutional maturity.
Let's move to see how this builds into the ultimate stress test, playing out in real time. In Step 1, economic frustration combines with immigration concerns into a single, volatile national conversation. Then, in Step 2, the resulting events deeply test institutional leadership and public trust. And finally, Step 3, global investors watch the entire outcome to assess the economy's overall resilience. It's a fascinating progression.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. The strategic question facing not just South Africa, but democracies worldwide is this. Can public frustration be addressed through formal channels, via policy reform and institutional action, or will it continue to build outside of them, spilling into the streets and disrupting the economy? The answer to that question is going to define the stability of global markets for years to come. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep your eyes on the data, and I'll catch you next time.